It is 8:59 p.m. August 30th here in this beautiful summer evening. Everyone's had a couple fantasy drafts. You might have a couple more in the books. We're going to get all the way into it, so everyone just chill out, relax, and let the good times roll.
All right, everybody. Welcome into the DNZ Fantasy Football Podcast. We took a little break there. We had a lot going on. We had fantasy drafts. We've got the new Game of Thrones coming out. We had to take a little bit of a break there. So welcome back, everybody. We really appreciate it. We're going to drop a bunch of news and notes. We're going to go over some fantasy drafts. We're going to do some team breakdowns, and we're going to get everything flying for that first week of fantasy football. We are less than 10 days away. Guys, it's time to get excited. Drake, break it down.
I know, man. Football is right around the corner. I feel like I've been saying it the past few weeks, but it's actually right around the corner. And college football starting here on Thursday. I guess it already started last week, but college football is back as well. My Mizzou Tigers playing on Thursday. Pretty excited. But even more excited to see how my fantasy rosters are going to play out this year. I mean, it's no longer talking season. Like, it is now put up or shut up. We'll see what everybody's rosters are made of. And I mean, I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm in 5 different leagues, 2 dynasties, along with 1 keeper, and then 2 redraft leagues that are a little bit different rostered. But I think we'll definitely talk about LOC and how our rookie draft went here today. And then maybe also our other league that's got a huge roster. We'll dive into that. Definitely an interesting, unique league that we've got there. But I'll just kind of run through a few news and notes. Didn't really plug in everything because there's been a ton of news.
We just got down to the 53-man roster cuts, so there was a lot of news and notes. We're just going to touch on some of the biggest things. So Drake, go ahead and
exactly. We made some cuts here, and today was the day. All rosters are down to 53 men. So I guess one thing to note here that I've got first on the list is J.K. Dobbins' Week 1 status is in doubt. The Ravens actually just signed Kenyon Drake, so definitely would be worried if I was a J.K. Dobbins owner. And it's interesting to see Kenyon Drake kind of went from totally irrelevant, getting dropped on all rosters that I saw, and now he might be that Week 1 starter there with Mike Davis to start the season. So he's got maybe a little bit of relevancy, but not so much dynasty unless you have a roster spot to spare. But something to keep in mind, J.K. Dobbins not going to be ready to go to start the season. Gus Edwards won't be as well. So that Baltimore backfield could look a little sketchy.
Who
Maybe
is that man?
Maybe the passing
Who is
game's
that
going to have to
man
go
start
off.
with?
Who?
For the Ravens. Who is that man?
Who starts for the Ravens Week
Yeah.
1? It'll be Mike Davis or Kenyon Drake.
that's wild. They are a team that just gets decimated by injuries. Like, that should be a top 5 team in the AFC, and every year it's just one thing after another. Lamar Jackson going down, J.K. Dobbins going down, receivers going down, defensive players dropping like flies. Like, they should be a top 5 AFC team, and every year they get hurt. The injury bug catches them, and it's really a shame. So
Even their damn mascot hurt his leg in that little mascot versus little kids at halftime the other day. Everybody in that organization is prone to injury, it seems. Maybe they haven't had as many to their team maybe this year as last year. Last year was crazy. Maybe they did something different with their practice field this year, which I hope they did. But we'll move on here. So Dameon Pierce looks locked and loaded to be that Houston running back 1. They released Marlon Mack today to get down to 53, and it's just Rex Burkhead in town, essentially. So no Marlon Mack. Dameon Pierce hasn't been named the starter, but he's going to be the starter. He's running back 1 there in Houston. And for redraft, he's certainly screaming up people's rankings.
Yeah,
And
I'd say if you haven't had your draft yet, do not be afraid to quote-unquote reach.
Oh, yeah, you're going to have to because somebody else is. Dameon Pierce is not a secret anymore. Everybody knows about him. So even your home leagues, I mean, I've seen him get people stretch on him every freaking draft I've been in. I mean, I would do it too. I've been sniped from Dameon Pierce. I plan on reaching and trying to get him, but I mean, you got to go out there and get him if you want him because it's not a secret anymore.
especially if you haven't done your rookie drafts yet, like I think this automatically almost puts him above James Cook.
I agree. I'd rather have Dameon Pierce than James Cook for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, maybe long term, like James Cook might be a little bit more, but if you're a win,
Maybe just because of the pass keeping.
right,
Pass catching.
but if you're a win now team and you need a running back or if you have that roster spot, like there's no reason not to get Dameon Pierce either late in the first round, early second round.
Yeah, I saw him go at the 107 in one of my dynasty leagues, and I think in our LOC draft he went there at the end of the round 1, 10th overall, if I remember correctly.
Did he?
I think so, because I picked Rashad White right after him, and I was probably going to consider taking Dameon Pierce there at the 111, but he was off the board there at the 110. So he's late first round right now, and I think he's only going up if you haven't had your rookie dynasty drafts. And I mean, for redraft purposes, I mean, if you go wide receiver heavy and you still get a top back, just wait around for Dameon Pierce. I mean, I think that's certainly a good option, and I know they're in maybe a not so hot offense. Like Houston's not an exciting offense, but they just still do have Brandon Cooks there. Davis Mills was serviceable last year.
Bad running backs always get their due.
Yeah, you can still find value on bad teams.
Good running backs get their due on bad teams. That's what I meant to say. So,
right.
I mean, shoot, do you think he, I guess not in Dynasty, but what would you say like his comparison is like with Kenneth Walker? Would you maybe draft him as early or...
In rookie drafts or redraft?
Mm-hmm. Rookie draft.
In rookie drafts, at this point, I'd probably still lean Kenneth Walker for dynasty purposes. I think they've got a little bit more invested in Kenneth Walker than the Houston Texans do in Dameon Pierce. There's nothing stopping Houston from just drafting a running back next season and kind of pulling Michael Carter on Dameon Pierce. Like I think that's certainly in the realm of possibilities. And so is that with Kenneth Walker. But, I mean, if Rashad Penny is still around, I mean, there's no reason for them to draft a guy. And as of right now, I'd probably lean Kenneth Walker for Dynasty. Redraft, I probably don't want to touch Kenneth Walker. He's had that hernia surgery recently, and it's just kind of scary.
I just wouldn't
take him.
I wouldn't touch anyone from Seattle, for being honest, right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't think I have any Seattle players on any of my teams.
With there still technically being a QB battle, because I don't think Geno Smith is going to start.
They're both backups,
games.
so it's always going to be a back and forth. But yeah, Geno will get that start week 1, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, I agree.
Kind of like with San Francisco.
Oh yeah, that's what I got next year. But yeah, Dameon Pierce no longer a secret. You're gonna have to reach over anybody else that's gonna reach on him. No longer a secret. But yeah, Jimmy G. We've been saying all offseason that he's not going to be back with the 49ers, but here he is. Resigns, restructures to stay with the 49ers for another season. He's going to fill that backup role. And there's been a lot of hate thrown Trey Lance. I mean, if you're able to go buy the dip on Trey Lance, go out there and acquire him. I mean, I tried in one league that I didn't have him in, just a redraft league, and see what I could try to do. Wasn't able to make much happen, but I'm still all aboard the Trey Lance trade. This is still the Trey Lance show, and I'm not worried about Jimmy G. Nobody wanted him. He's just came off shoulder surgery. Nobody wants to mess with that, and it's certainly possible that they trade him during the season.
It wasn't a severe shoulder surgery, though.
He still had surgery, and he still has to go through that, and it's a bad injury for quarterbacks. Just like O-linemen, when they hurt their backs, I mean, that's like the worst thing an O-lineman can do.
They said that he would have been ready for week 1, but I do agree. We give you a lot of shit. Trey Lance is QB1. I do think he'll be a good quarterback. I don't know how quickly he'll adapt, especially playing in that beast of a division. So it'll be really tough because not only do you have good offenses, you have really good defenses there too. So
I still think you got to go Trey Lance if you can get him in that spot while you're drafting. I think that this is a lot like the stock market when it comes to Jimmy G. So Trey Lance, Elon Musk will tweet something out, and a certain stock is just going to skyrocket or it'll tank because Elon Musk tweeted something. It's kind of the same way with Trey Lance with the Jimmy G situation. The news comes out, Jimmy G's staying on the roster. He has a no trade clause. So that immediately makes the stock tank for Trey Lance. But reality is this is still his team. They've named him the starter. If there was enough there for a guy like Trey Lance to be named the starter over a quote-unquote proven vet like Jimmy G, that's big. And they're not just going to swap those dudes out. This is Trey Lance's team. He has llama potential, and it's not something you should get worried about.
Yeah, and I'll play a little devil's advocate with myself. So they're still paying Jimmy G about $16 million, which is like the top paid
That's
backup.
That's why they couldn't trade him. That's why they couldn't trade him.
So
that's why
they couldn't
Baker's in Carolina.
They couldn't pay
Jimmy
him.
G's still in San Fran is because of that fucking price tag.
So his base pay, if I understood the contract correctly, is like $6 or $7 million. If he does come in and he gets like huge starting bonuses, and that makes it upwards of 17. But I think he only gets, it's between like 6 and 8 million, I believe. It's somewhere in that
it's still
ballpark.
It's top paid for backup quarterbacks around the league. And I mean, maybe there has been a little bit of just hesitancy with the coaching staff there that we just want to have an insurance policy. We want to have a backup plan, and we know what Jimmy G can bring. We give him a few weeks, and Trey Lance, I mean, that would be devastating for Trey Lance. To somehow get benched for Jimmy G halfway through the season would just be devastating. But I see why the 49ers see value in keeping him around from a team perspective, especially with a running quarterback. I mean, who knows? I mean, he could get hurt, God forbid. But it makes sense from a 49ers perspective, but I'm not too worried about Jimmy G getting into
and I'm sure
anything with Trey Lance.
With any trade talk that was involved, it would have been you're going to front some of his contract money as well, kind of similar to the Baker Mayfield deal, because I think he was due like $20 million north of that this year. And so he took a steep restructure for his contract, which was good for him. But if they just dropped him, he was just going to go to Seattle.
And exactly. And they play Seattle that's a early in the season.
That's a divisional opponent. You don't want to just drop him, cut him, eat his cost, have him go to a divisional rival,
right,
and then have him play against you.
Yeah, it seems like silly that they would have that thought process, but like it's the NFL. You can lose any week. Like it doesn't matter. Every team's pretty solid and stacked. So, I mean, the Seattle's not scary, but I mean, if you drop Jimmy G and then he starts for them and beats you early in the season, like that's just devastating. It looks dumb as a coaching staff and a franchise and an organization. So, it makes sense to me, but I'm not too worried about Trey Lance. It's still the Trey Lance show out here.
Yeah.
We'll be good.
They've got to get enough offense around him.
So, a bizarre and kind of almost a tragic story with certain Brian Robinson out of the Washington Commanders. Took a couple gunshots to the leg and glute. He was getting robbed, I guess. They wanted his car or some shit. So, just a terrible situation going on there for Brian Robinson, and we're certainly thinking about him. I think he was back in the practice facility, back in the office here today. I think he was like on crutches, had a little like cast on his foot or something. So nothing was life-threatening, obviously. So fantastic news on that front.
Prayers up.
Exactly. But they didn't put him. He made the 53-man roster. They haven't put him on an IR or NFI, whatever they call it nowadays. And it's still possible that happens, but I think at this point there is a little bit of hope that he plays at some point this season. And originally originally you just think, oh, he's done for the whole season. He just got shot twice. But it seems like there's a slight optimism that he could play. But the up and down ride for Antonio Gibson is continuing. So I think out of all players, I don't think anybody that's currently rostered has gone down in value this offseason more than Antonio Gibson, especially in the last few months, let alone weeks. So that just becomes even more interesting because obviously he's going to see a lot more volume. They're going to have to trust him, it seems like, almost at this point. So, I mean, if you held on to Antonio Gibson and weren't able to trade him away, you might have a little bit of benefit from that this season. Past that, we shall see. But, I mean, this certainly helps Antonio Gibson, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this is just like the stock market I was just talking about. Antonio Gibson's been having all these various viral tweets and comments come out about him that makes his stock soar, makes his stock sink.
Yeah, homeboy's on punt returns. Like, what the hell?
He's going to be just fine for the year. If I'm not worried about Antonio Gibson this year.
I know. What a wild ride we've got going there. And was this Antonio Gibson just putting out a beat on Brian Robinson to take? Is this what fantasy managers have fantasy managers taken something too far to take out Brian Robinson? Like what? Where's the full story?
In the range of outcomes.
Because he technically he had like that number 2 role almost locked in, didn't he?
Brian Robinson.
Yeah,
he's almost. They were about to declare him the starter. Like it came out like the day before that. Beat reporters were like, he's about to like be the starter. He's over Antonio Gibson. That's like happening. Hadn't been announced yet by the team, but obviously this tragedy happens. But the guy's going to be okay. He's going to play football in the NFL. We'll see how soon that comes about. So that's kind of the news and notes that we kind of wanted to touch on. Is there anything else that happened lately that you boys want to talk about?
People put a hit out on Gibson.
I do just have a quick question regarding this topic. So like, if he did come back and play this year, does that make him eligible for comeback player of the year, or does that injury have to happen beforehand? Obviously, this is very hypothetical, but
I don't think he's ever played in the league, so it
Was he a
wouldn't be
rookie?
able. He is a rookie,
Oh, then never mind.
so
I didn't know he was a
think
rookie.
that would make him ineligible. But that's a good question, though. I mean, I'd give it to him if he
should-
comes back
he should-
and
he-
balls out halfway through the season. Like
He
towards
should
the
still
end,
get
like,
some sort of award.
yeah, let's give him something. Homeboy deserves it. Like,
Even if he just
So,
runs the ball. It's like Alex Smith
yeah.
just going and sucking after his leg injury. It's
Yeah,
so
so-
cool that he did it.
right.
Homeboy
So-
got shot twice.
Bigger and better things ahead for Brian Robinson. We will be plugged in on that. Well, we can kind of shift over to draft results. We want to kind of talk about our drafts and our rookie drafts and LOC, kind of how that went, how the draft board shook out. It was a very interesting draft. I think there was a couple guys that fell, and a couple guys that running backs were pushed up the board quite a bit, and which I'm not surprised that normally is how it happens. So, Nick, you did have a couple picks in the first round in our LOC rookie draft, and
Incredible.
talk about those picks. I know you had 2 top 5 picks, and you traded for the 101 and you had the 104, and I think you did pretty solid. And for dynasty purposes, I mean, those guys are going to be good down the stretch. Who did you get at the 101 and the 104?
Well, I was fortunate enough to execute a trade and acquire that 1-1 that gave me the opportunity to draft Breece Hall. Everybody's 1-1 there. And Breece Hall especially, I mean, we're talking dynasty right now, of course. That's just gold. Pure gold.
Oh, yeah. You set it, forget it. I mean, he's locked in 101.
There's no way, there's no scenario, there's no which way about it. Even if it doesn't work out, you can't come back and say, oh, I should have taken someone else there. You got to go Breece Hall. All the nerds say that he's grading like dudes like Derrick Henry and whatnot. Who were those other dudes that they were saying he was matched
There was
up with?
the next gen stats. They'd grade him after the combine, and he received like a 99. And I think Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Saquon Barkley were all recent ones. But you might be talking about something different. But was that maybe the player profile had a couple player comparisons? I think like Herschel Walker was on that list or something.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It was that Flocker dude.
Yeah.
And his props if he ever happens to listen to this one. But per his nerd stats, it was this group of just absolutely legendary running backs across all decades. And they said Breece Hall hits these metrics.
Yeah, that's Mason Dodd, the Fantasy Flock Network. He's
No
a
sponsor.
big Breece Hall
No
guy.
sponsor.
And he's a big Drake London guy who Drake London would here at the 102 as well. I mean, I think he's the clear-cut wide receiver 1 in this rookie class. I think I took Drake London at the 102 in a different dynasty league. So Blair got him there at the 102. Good for Blair. He went wide receiver, so he definitely needs wide receivers. I know he traded me Marquise Brown here this offseason. His wide receiver room kind of looks like A.J. Brown, Chris Godwin, Jerry Jeudy, and then there's a couple of lesser exciting guys like Tyler Boyd, Alan Lazard, Nico Collins, Josh Palmer. So adding Drake London to that, I think is pretty solid. So a top 4 wide receivers.
Immediate starter for him, probably.
Drake London, Chris Godwin, A.J. Brown, and Jerry Jeudy. That's a solid 4 wide receivers to choose from. So I do like that for Blair's team makeup. And I think he was good at the running back position. He didn't need to worry about trying to overpay for a Kenneth Walker or a James Cook or a Damian
No,
Pierce.
I
So
think Drake London's
I'm
what
glad-
I went with there. That's what I was hoping
Yeah.
to go with my 4.
yeah,
But
right,
that's probably never going to happen. So I ended up in going Olave.
yeah,
with my
Chris
4,
Olave
that
at the 104.
I had the 1-1 and the 1-4.
That
It
was interesting.
awesome.
So Kenneth Walker went off at the 103 right before your pick there at the 104. Or at the 103, Kenneth Walker went and Chris Olave at the 104. But I know you were deliberating. I mean, we talked on this podcast. I mean, you were set on Treylon Burks, and we figured Treylon Burks was going to go fall right to you there at the 104. And I remember asking, I was like, is anything going to make you change your mind? Like, is there some type of chance I'm going to be able to pick him at the 108 at all? And you were like, nope, nothing's going to change my mind. But Chris Olave changed your mind. I don't think you really saw that coming. Was it a last-minute decision? Was it a couple of days before decision?
It really
it's a tough call.
It really was a same-day decision, but I had just settled into the fact that Treylon Burks is probably going to have an asthma attack or 2 this season.
That's not very nice.
Olave, I watched him a ton in college, and from what I've seen the past couple of years, that does translate to the NFL. So I'm not going to say it doesn't. Olave is an artist out there. He even sounds like one. So, I mean, that dude's got hands like no other. Pending a Michael Thomas resurgence, does anyone think that's going to happen? Olave is the number one.
I think it could happen. I think Michael Thomas could be okay this season. I think it doesn't hurt Olave a ton. I mean, as we've seen all across the NFL, I mean, when you have two dominant wide receivers, I mean, you can have a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins and both be top 24, top 30 wide receivers. So I think Olave, he's going to be good to go. I mean, you maybe don't plug him in your starting lineup for week 1, but you kind of see how it goes first few weeks. And
if he's
plug him in if he produces.
I think he's going to be is wide receiver 1 in Nollins, and he's got a gunslinger like Jameis Winston. Everyone make your jokes, but this dude puts up numbers. He might throw INTs, but those don't go against my wide receivers.
Well, he's got that 20/20 vision now. He's got that lacy. He's a whole different quarterback.
Vision.
Dude was a baller quarterback last year before he got hurt.
He really was.
Yeah, 100%. So I was full confidence, no regrets, taking Olave there and not asthma attack.
So Breece Hall at the 101, Chris Olave at the 104 for Nick to start off his rookie draft. Next off the board, which Zach was pretty upset about. Maybe I should have. Ryan took James Cook at the 105, and I think Zach was pretty locked in on picking James Cook with his first round pick potentially. And Ryan's been locked in on James Cook for the past few months. And
fuck you for not I would have traded up for that. Fuck you.
I guess I failed to mention that to my pod host here. And James Cook really threw you for a loop. Is that fair to say for your first pick? I mean, that you were pretty locked in with James Cook. So he goes at the 105. That's no longer possible. And then at the 106, Jameson Williams goes off the board. Thought that's about right. I mean, you got to have to sit and wait, but this is Dynasty. I mean, we've got time. If you're a patient, have IR spots. Jameson Williams is a fine take, and I'm just glad he wasn't on the board for when I had to pick, because that would have made my decision that more tough, because I had DJ Chark. I dropped him, but I have Amon Ra as well, so I didn't want a third Detroit Lions, but I did have to make that decision. So Jameson Williams at the 106, and then Zach traded into the first round for the 106. And our guy 107 and Treylon Burks fell to you, man.
Yeah,
how'd that feel?
So yeah, that was pretty awesome. Arguably the first or second best wide receiver in this class. So I mean, it was up to whoever you talk to, if it's Drake London or if it's Treylon Burks. So I was very happy. So I traded earlier this, it was back in like April or May that I made this trade. I traded away Aaron Rodgers for the 107, and this whole offseason I was like, you know what, I'm going to be able to either snag, a receiver or a quarterback, and then James Cook. I could have swore I wasn't going to be able to get James Cook with one of my 2 picks, and it didn't happen. I'm already receiver wealthy, but I'm not going to reach on someone like Dameon Pierce or Rashad White, especially we did this, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Yeah. So, back then it was still Dameon Pierce, Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead. There were still all those 3 guys. You didn't know what his workload was going to look like.
He had only played 1 preseason game at that point, it seemed. So we didn't see the whole thing. But, I mean, at this point, I mean, would if you redid it, and Dameon Pierce was still on the board, would you redo that pick and pick Dameon Pierce over Treylon Burks there?
Not there, no. I don't think so. Not with Treylon Burks still on the board. If he's on the board, you grab him. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm the pick right after you. I was dying for you to not pick Burks. But
I was. So Sky Moore was still on the board. And obviously, us being Chiefs fans, we see a lot of upside with that. The Chiefs don't have any receivers officially locked in for next season except for Sky Moore. And I guess Christian Watson. No, not Christian Watson. Who's the...
Oh, is it Justin Watson?
Justin Watson. We do have him next year. We don't it is a 3-year contract.
For MVS.
Yeah, we can cut him at the end of the season. So that's neither here nor there. I was debating between Sky Moore and Treylon Burks. I don't like him being paired with Tannehill. But also, I've seen what Malik Willis has been doing with Tennessee.
He's had a nice
and
preseason.
it's looked
He
really
has.
good. Pinpoint accuracy. I did need a quarterback. I needed a running back, but Traylon Burks fell to me. We got to take Traylon
Yeah,
Burks.
I don't think you made any mistakes there whatsoever. I would have died if he would have fell to me.
Yeah.
And I think that my biggest surprise I thought Sky Moore. I mean, I picked there at the 108, and I ended up picking Sky Moore. But I was totally planning on somebody taking the Chiefs hype, the Chiefs bias, and picking Sky Moore.
Mm-hmm.
So I was surprised to see him there. And Garrett Wilson has been a major faller in rookie drafts that I've seen. I've only been in 2, and so in my 2 rookie drafts, Garrett Wilson has fallen, and he's still considered a top 3 receiver by most people.
Do you think the injury to Zach Wilson has attributed to that at all?
I doubt it. No, I mean we've never thought of Zach Wilson very highly, so it is dynasty. So I mean I think it almost
you traded
benefits
for him, didn't you?
In the offseason, I traded Mac Jones for Zach Wilson straight up, and it's looking a little murky, but I mean, season hasn't started. Mac Jones reports out of New England haven't been very good this offseason. So, I mean, Zach Wilson has all the weapons around him.
Yeah, that's a good move.
So I'm still okay with it. I might end up regretting it, but I mean, I got rid of Mac fucking Jones. I'm not too worried about not having that guy on my roster. So hopefully Zach Wilson can be healthy. I think having Zach Wilson is going to be better for Garrett Wilson, but I had Elijah Moore on my roster, and I'm not trying to have 2 Jets wide receivers on my team. Like, maybe that would have been smart because I do have Zach Wilson. Do I want the top 2 wide receiver options and Zach Wilson on my team? I mean, maybe that was a good decision. But
what if they become kind of like the Bengals last year, where after one of my drafts, I was like, shit, I have the whole Bengals offense. That doesn't look too good. And then it turned out to be great.
It does seem like they're maybe primed for that kind of arc this season.
They might not win games, but are they scoring points?
Yeah, well, this is fantasy football, so that's all that matters. But
so you took Sky Moore.
Took Sky Moore over Garrett Wilson, so happy about that. I mean, like we said, he's the only one tied to the receiver group for the Chiefs for the foreseeable future outside of MVS and possibly Juju. So I really like Sky Moore. I'm a big fan. When he got drafted, I was ecstatic. And I think he's going to be good for this offense. And I think he's going to contribute year 1. He's not going to have the biggest role in the world, most likely. But I'm super excited for Sky Moore, man. Super excited. So love to get him in there at the 108. We'll kind of see how he does to start the season and see if he earns a starting spot on my roster. But Garrett Wilson finally goes off the board at the 109. So, Zach, you got 2 wide receivers that fell in this draft that are still wide receivers that I really like. And for dynasty purposes, snagging Garrett Wilson at the 109 is pretty unheard of, probably, I would say.
I love my draft, I really do, but I also hate my draft. I think my positional value that I got was so good.
Yeah, you were picking best available.
It wasn't helping my team. Like, hindsight 2020, I should have maybe reached on someone like so Dameon Pierce went at 110, so would I have rather had Dameon Pierce over Garrett Wilson?
If you got Pickens with your next pick like you did, maybe.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck. So looking at my team right now, my running backs are Marlon Mack, Rashad Penny, Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Javonte Williams, and Ramondre Stevenson. So I think I have 3 decent.
Yeah, 3.
I mean, I have CEH could be good, Javonte should be good, and Ramondre, who we're going to talk about a little bit later.
R.I.P. Marlon Mack.
Right, yeah. Marlon Mack. I picked him up on the waivers because I was like, this guy's going to be, he might have the starting role. Like, they may be
maybe starter week 1.
I was expecting that to be like a Javonte and Melvin Gordon type situation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, so much for that. So I saw Garrett Wilson available. I was like, shoot, well, that's arguably the second or third best receiver there. Like, depending on who you talk to, they're like Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson. So I got him. I don't need receivers, but it's hard to argue with that positional value. So, yeah, I got Garrett Wilson. Then Dameon Pierce went 110. And then
to end the first round, just a 10-team league here at LOC. And I traded up for the 111. I traded away Gabe Davis
man with a million
for the 111
draft.
So this is my second pick in the draft, and I wanted to target running back with this pick. I wanted another early second-round pick so I could lock in one of these rookie running backs. And a guy that I've been on in the pre-draft process and post-draft just podcast, I mean, I had Rachaad White as one of my sleepers. Wanted to see him go round 3. He went round 3. He's a pass-catching capable back. That's actually really his specialty. And he should see – I think he's already at that running back 2 role for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And there's always a little bit of slander thrown at him, like, oh, Tom Brady's not going to trust a rookie running back. And maybe he doesn't pass or he doesn't pass block very well. But Tom Brady likes to check down the ball. I mean, that's given Leonard Fournette a ton of value the past year and a half, 2 years, whatever. But so if anything happens to Leonard Fournette, Rachaad White's going to be a locked and loaded running back 1, 2 for your roster week in and week out, and he's still going to see a role.
I snagged him real late in a redraft league that we did just last night. I got him as my last pick in that draft.
It's a good last pick. I'm a big fan of Rachaad White. He is a little older for rookies. I think he's about 23, 24 with the JUCO route. But big fan of Rachaad White. Glad I was able to get him because I'm all over the guy. And it was tough, though, because, I mean, guys like George Pickens had been screaming up rankings for rookies, and I maybe should have gone George Pickens. But I wanted my guy, Rachaad White, so let's go. I got Rachaad White. Zach, we have a snake draft. So you had the second pick of the second round here.
Yep. So here I am at the 202, needing a fucking running back. Dameon Pierce and Rachaad White go back to back. And, yeah.
You just forced into a situation where you take best available, which just happens to be a wide receiver.
And it was George Pickens. So, I mean, I maybe I should have, looking at my team, because my quarterbacks also are Marcus Mariota, Daniel Jones, and Justin Herbert. But also, I don't know, we don't know what these quarterbacks are going to be like.
Yeah.
I thought maybe, you know what, fuck it, let's punt on quarterback this year and hope for the quarterback class for next year. Nick has talked them up. They are a little bit better than the quarterbacks are.
Yeah, I think you made the right choice. So, and I think the only other direction you could have gone would be to take Kenny Pickett there.
Yeah.
Which would have been good value. He's the only first-round pick for a quarterback position this year. But, I mean, reports for Kenny Pickett have been good and bad. He's played really well in the preseason, but he hasn't been named the starter, and it doesn't. Right. We don't have any type of timeline for when he's going to start. I don't think he's a starter week 1, and I actually picked him the next pick after that for the 3rd pick in the 2nd round, and I think that's an incredibly good value for a super flex rookie draft. Didn't really plan on picking Kenny Pickett, but just kind of made sense for my roster. I only have 3 quarterbacks, and it's super flex. I think you're more comfortable with 4, and this is the cheapest you're ever going to be able to acquire a starting quarterback in a super flex league. This is the cheapest it's ever going to get. So I'm going to take a shot on Kenny Pickett. He played really well in the preseason, and he's not going to start the year. It's going to be Mitchell Trubisky, and I think that's smart. That's how they should do it.
It's a good long-term investment.
Yeah, you don't want to run the rookie out there week 1, have him make his rookie mistakes, and then go back to Mitchell Trubisky halfway through the season because Pickett's still learning, still a rookie. It's not going to be good for his confidence. It's not going to be good for his progression. So start with Mitchell Trubisky, let him play a few weeks, see how Pickett progresses, and then halfway through the year, week 8, let's fire up Kenny Pickett. Let's see what he can do for us.
The list of first-round quarterback draft picks that did not start their first year is a legendary list that you want to be on.
Yes, sir.
This includes Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes,
Trey Lance,
amongst many others. Trey Lance is foreseen.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Was Tom Brady on that list?
Tom Brady was not.
Jimmy G on that list too.
Tom Brady was drafted very late.
Well, I guess you said first-round picks.
Long list of first-round draft picks where teams drafted this guy to be their QB of the future and did not start him in that first year. Let him learn the NFL for a year.
It does seem like if the Steelers wanted to redo that draft, that they probably could have traded back a little bit and picked him later, probably. Kenny. But they wasted their 20th overall pick, first round on Kenny Pickett, so they're going to try and get their money's worth eventually.
I don't know if it's necessarily a waste, though. Like they said, they needed a quarterback.
He's a Pittsburgh guy, too. Exactly. It's kind of a no-brainer almost.
And, I mean, getting the number 1 overall quarterback at that point in the draft, who, I mean, if you even the week of the draft saying that there was probably going to be 3 or 4 or 2 or anywhere between 2 and 4 quarterbacks going in that first round, like, you never really know. So, I don't think they necessarily wasted a pick on him, but looking at the next pick here, it was Christian Watson for the Green Bay Packers. That was taken by guest here on the show, Galactic Empire.
Woody, a.k.a. Galactic Empire, a.k.a. Jared.
Not a bad pick. That's one of those that's best position available. You could argue either Christian Watson or Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Jahan Dotson, maybe? I mean, do you guys like Jahan or Christian Watson more right now?
I like Christian in his
Flip a
situation.
There's just not as much hype because Watson's been dealing with an injury this whole offseason, it seems like.
And Dotson, I mean, it depends on what fucking Carson Wentz you're getting.
Yeah.
Are you getting the Carson Wentz that was good before his knee injuries, or are you getting the Carson Wentz who throws 40 interceptions every year? So
well, hopefully the guy's got a chip on his shoulder. Everybody talks more shit on Carson Wentz than any other freaking quarterback.
And I loved Jahan Dotson too. He was one of the guys that we were hoping that the Chiefs maybe got.
Yeah.
And then
he does have Terry McLaurin there,
Yeah.
so there's a little bit more competition there. And
they drafted him, 13th overall? They drafted him super early, didn't they?
yes, he was the 16th overall pick.
16th, okay.
He was picked before Traylon Burks.
Yeah.
So,
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, so Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson there back to back. Isaiah Spiller, then Brian Robinson, David Bell, Tyler Algier.
So
let's just make. Go ahead, sorry.
I do want to say something here. So I had made note that I was kind of running back heavy or needing a running back. I tried trading back into the second round by offering my third round pick and players to both Blair and to Graham. And I was offering like my third round pick and like Devontae Smith or really whoever, and they just weren't taking it for whatever reason. Because I was hoping to maybe get.
I would have done that.
Let me see. Graham took David Bell because I was wanting Isaiah Pacheco because I have CEH, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm pretty sure at some point he's going to get hurt this year. That's when we all were also thinking that Ronald Jones was maybe going to get cut. So it was going to be between Pacheco and McKinnon, really, if Clyde went down. But I still think Pacheco is going to get his due. So
maybe that short yardage back or something.
Yeah,
but, Rojo did make the 53-man roster, so that changes our. I mean, that's not the
little
thought
bit,
process.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah,
I still think Pacheco. It's going to be Clyde and Pacheco, but I tried my hardest to trade back into the second round to get Pacheco because I needed another running back, and I think in the Andy Reid system, he would have done well, but alas, it didn't happen. Like you said, we went Dotson, Spiller, Robinson, David Bell, Tyler Algier. I really like that pick because he's probably going to be.
Algier has looked nice.
He's going to be the starting back there in Atlanta.
I feel like there's been a couple moments for him this preseason where they kind of get in the red zone. They get within 10 yards. He had one touchdown. He just ran it right up the middle, found a hole, and got to the end zone. And he got another pass out of the backfield from Desmond Ridder and found himself in the end zone. So I think this guy is just really does make it happen, and there's a clear role and a lot of opportunity for him there in Atlanta.
I feel like him and Dameon Pierce are like the same player. It's just he's not getting.
They do run hard. They're mean runners.
They're not getting the same hype for whatever reason. I really like Tyler Algier. I was going to take either Pacheco or Algier. It just depended on who was left there. But
after Algier, Nick, you've got the last pick here in the second round, and you snagged your boy, Alec Pierce.
Yeah, I really like Alec Pierce a lot. I think he's going to turn into a big role there in Indy. He's big-time sleeper. That's going to be a target there. They don't have a lot going on, and reports coming out of their preseason, out of their camp, is that he's balling. So I have full confidence in an Alex Pierce pick there.
Yeah, he might be that wide receiver too for Indy at some point this season. It does seem like Paris Campbell's been looking really good, so I think Paris Campbell's locked in for that wide receiver 2 to start the season. And they do have Michael Pittman. I mean, I think Michael Pittman is primed for a really good season. And they do bring in Matt Ryan, who is a very good and successful veteran quarterback. And I like Alec Pierce too. I'm a big fan. He does separate pretty well. He's a bigger receiver with a little bit of speed to him. Good hands. out of Cincinnati. So I do like Alex Pierce there. And
the way I see the Colts going this year, I have a little bit of juju going here because if you just look at the past 2 teams that have won the Super Bowl, it's vet QBs that have moved over to a new team.
Matt Ryan next, you think?
Exactly. We had Matty Ice last year. It was Tom Brady the year before. No reason, in my opinion, that Matt Ryan isn't going to come in here and have the fucking season.
Did you call Matt Stafford Matty Ice?
Yeah.
Matt Ryan is Matty Ice. Stafford is just Stafford.
It works both ways, I guess. That is a good point. I guess we can't double up nicknames.
Yep. Matt Ryan's Matty Ice. Get that straight.
That's fine.
All right. Well, we can move on to the beginning of the third round. Zamir White goes to start off the third round. And then Isaiah Pacheco, the second pick in the third round. We figured he'd go somewhere in the third round, if not second round. I think he actually went for the first pick in the second round in my other Dynasty League. So people were reaching on Chiefs all over the place in another different Dynasty League. But yeah, Isaiah Pacheco, beginning of the third round. And let's just talk about our last couple picks instead of going through all the picks. Nick, who'd you pick for your last pick in the rookie draft? At the 304, got your boy, Trey McBride?
Yeah, I took the tight end there. People kind of gave me some grief, but I just personally needed the tight end there, and he is the tight end in that rookie draft. So it was kind of I had to do it in my given situation.
Yeah, let's look here. What does your tight end room look like? You got Tyler Higbee and Robert Tonyan. Yeah, no, you're pretty desperate for a tight end. I think that's a good spot to pick McBride. And if he's the number 1 tight end, I mean, you got him at the middle of the third round. I think that's
he was
pretty
by
decent.
Far
and
the
he's
best tight end
he's
coming
gonna
out of this draft.
He's gonna be tied to Kyler Murray for his rookie contract, and Zach Ertz isn't getting any younger. So Trey McBride, I like it. Trey McBride, Desmond Ridder off the board after that. Calvin Austin, which we could blow over that. Not sure what the hell Nate's thinking picking Calvin Austin. But Malik Willis goes off the board, middle of the third round at the 307. Quarterbacks really got pushed back. Usually they were all going in the middle of the second round at the latest. But the 308, I picked Tyrion Davis-Price. Wasn't super excited with this pick, and I'm just going to...
You had so many damn picks, you were going to end up with someone.
I know. I'm going to stash him on my taxi squad, see how that goes. There was a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson that I kind of wish I drafted there. A little bit of regret on my end, but Tyrion Davis-Price, we'll see what happens there in San Francisco. And Tyquan Thornton at the 309. Zach, that's your guy, man.
God, he was looking so good in his preseason games as well, and then he gets out, breaks his collarbone, needs surgery, so...
Not surprised. I mean, the homeboy's goddamn cinnamon stick. Applejack's mascot.
But you know, he was looking fucking fire. I was really happy about that pick as well. Especially Patriots wide receiver room is ass. So just getting a fast guy, you just tell Mac Jones to throw it as far as he can. Hopefully do the whole fuck it Tyreek down there somewhere. So, but he's out. I have a bone to pick with you because I can put Tyquan Thornton on my IR right now. So, but
is he on the IR?
He's out. I mean, I don't know if he's on the IR, but
I think if he's out, you're not able to put him on the IR?
No. That's it. We can talk about this after, but that's just something I was laughing about. I think he can be a pretty decent developmental player, but we'll see what happens.
Stash him on your Texas squad. Yeah. Be patient with it. It's Dynasty.
I was hoping one of the quarterbacks fell, but like Desmond Ridder or Malik Willis.
Malik Willis was 2 picks away, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. Oh, if you were able to stack Burks and Willis there, together, that would have been real nice.
Oh, that would have been beautiful. But
you try and trade for Willis. It's just Jared that has him. Jared's just as desperate for quarterback as you are, essentially, though.
Yeah, and I gave him a quarterback.
Right. He just got an older quarterback. And a guy went off at the very last pick that have we even figured out who this guy is yet? Who does he play for?
Mr. Irrelevant.
Jacob went ahead and picked a wide receiver, Charleston Rambo, out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, that was
a little fair weather activity going on.
That was a biased pick right there. Charleston Rambo was... Here's the story on this guy. He was supposed to be wide receiver 1 for OU after CeeDee Lamb left, and he wasn't. He literally wasn't, and then transferred to Miami the next year. Like, he wasn't it. Bad draft. Bad pick.
Yep. No need to talk about that much further, but draft was interesting. I mean, I've been looking forward to this rookie draft for this entire offseason.
Pretty much why we made this podcast.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about this kind of stuff, get our league mates involved in some type of discussion and podcast, and create a little bit of excitement and buzz for our league. And I feel like we've certainly done so. So we'll try and keep that going through the season.
Here's a random, totally off-topic question for the pod. We don't have to address it right now, but this is for our listeners. My dad just texted me, "Why do I need Hulu?" Let us all ponder. Let us know in the comments.
You don't.
Let's move on.
YouTube TV, although I have Hulu.
Yeah, so we are primed for the NFL season to finally start. Get our fantasy rosters. We've got them figured out. We're at a point where I'm almost like exhausted with fantasy football. That we like been doing all these drafts. I'm in 5 leagues. Been doing all this research and talking about it. I mean, I eat, breathe, and sleep fantasy football. So finally, the season's right around the corner, and we're going to see what everybody's rosters are made of. And I think we both have a couple breakout players that we want to discuss. Zach, you want to start us off here?
Sure. I guess I'll have 2. One of them I have on my roster. And I think that's going to be Clyde. I think Clyde might be...
Damn, last minute switcheroo.
Red alert.
Okay,
red
we
alert,
got Clyde.
red alert.
I like it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I did forget I had Marcus Mariota,
No,
but that's
red
neither
alert,
here,
red alert,
neither
red
here nor
alert,
there.
red alert.
I do think Clyde, if he can stay healthy, I think having a younger, like someone who's pretty much got the entire fan base behind this
Pistachio?
person, yeah, like
That's my new nickname for Pacheco.
Yeah,
I'm gonna refer
Pistachio.
to it as Pistachio.
But I think
Pistachio.
Clyde having that like fire lit under his ass, like if he can stay healthy,
He had that gallbladder surgery, man. He's ready to roll.
I think if he can stay healthy, I think he's primed for not necessarily 1,000-yard rushing, but I think he can be over 1,100 yards total
All
offense.
purpose.
Yeah, I think he can get 800 rushing, 300 receiving, and be a really good.
Get close to double digits touchdowns.
Yeah, I think he'll probably somewhere like 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone who hasn't finished higher than like RB40, I think he might be top 24 for a running back. And then for my other breakout player, it's kind of a cop out because it's not a single player, but I'm gonna say just one of the receivers in the Chiefs wide receiver room. Obviously, I'm going both Chiefs. I'm showing my bias here, but I mean, they lost a huge portion of their offense last year. They lost someone with over 1,000 yards receiving. They lost someone who had over 100 yards 100 receptions. So that's a lot to go around. And Patrick Mahomes, as he's getting more and more and evolving as a quarterback and adapting to these NFL defenses and how they're playing him, I mean, one of these guys is going to break out. I don't think we're going to have 4 or 5 receivers that's going to have 800 yards each. We're going to have one of them is going to break out. And I think for fantasy, it's going to suck because you're not going to know. But I do think there's going to be one 1,000-yard receiver. I think there's going to be like a 750 to 800-yard receiver. And then there's going to be like 2 600-yard receivers.
It's got to be Juju that's going to be that guy. What do you say? And then Sky Moore, kind of the dark horse for it.
I think it's going to be Juju, then MVS. I want to say
Sky Moore.
Then Sky Moore. If Sky Moore is like second or leads the team outside of Travis Kelce, of course.
Yep,
If Sky Moore leads or is second in the receiver room, something either went really, really good for the Chiefs or something went really, really bad for the Chiefs.
I agree.
And that means like MVS and Juju getting hurt or something like that. So
yeah, you try and take a stab on one of these
Yeah.
receivers in the Kansas City wide receiver room.
yeah, you
And
can't.
it might just pan out.
You can't have like Juju, MVS, or MVS and Sky Moore, and then like just keep like flip flopping them week in and week out because you're just gonna drive yourself mad. You have to have one and either stick with it or just boot them.
It's almost like dealing with the 49ers backfield before Elijah Mitchell took over last year. Such a pain in the ass trying to figure out who is going to actually be that lead back.
Yep.
And it might be a similar story there
Yeah.
in the
And at that
KC wide
point,
receivers.
Is it honestly worth it even playing that game? If
No.
it's going to be spread out like that.
Yeah, it's just such a headache. I mean, you like guys where you can plug
and
them
just
in,
let it ride.
and forget about it and not have any worries or woes about it. So, yeah, one of those guys are going to probably separate themselves from the rest, hopefully. Nick, you want to go ahead and talk about your 2 breakout players? A little bit of a theme going on here.
Yeah, we got 2 of them. It's going to be an RB and a wideout. For the RB, and my wideout. We got bias going.
Bias everywhere.
We got bias going out the charts in this motherfucker. But running back, Ramondre Stevenson. Get this dinosaur-sounding name into your head. It's a Ramondre Rex up in this. Ramondre.
Is that what kind of dinosaur he would be? Would he be a
I don't
T-Rex?
know. That's what I was just thinking. Is he a Ramondre Raptor?
Oh, could you imagine a T-Rex
He'd
playing
be a
running back?
Ramondrosaurus.
Oh, Ramondrosaurus.
What about a Ramondre Raptor?
New nickname.
Ooh, I like
Play the alert.
I'm gonna go Ramondre Raptor here. Ramondre Raptor. All you need to know
Ramondre
about
Raptor.
this
We
man
changed it already.
Is 4.6 yards per carry. Not a lot of action built into that 4.6 yards per carry, but that's also a testament to a 4.6 number. Every time he touches the ball, he's accumulated a 4.6 yards per carry. He's a big play guy, too. He's busted off touchdowns in, preseason.
He was the Damian Pierce of last year.
Mm-hmm.
He had an insane preseason.
Yeah, so
Then he sat on the bench.
If
This
you
is
did
true.
fantasy football in college, Ramondre had to have been RB1 his last year there at OU. He sat most of the year for some weed, stay off the weed, but once he came in, this man's was RB1.
Stay off
His
the weed.
only competition in the backfield is Damian
And he was
Harris, who
on
the
crack.
Patriots are actively flirting that name in the trade circles. Like they're trying to get rid of this man.
So he is still the running back too. How do you feel about Damian Harris there?
I mean, it sounds like they're trying to get rid of him. They're trying to fucking float his name out there, trying to get rid of that dude. I mean, Ramondre is primed to take over this backfield. James White is gone.
He could really command a 3-down workload, and they did bring in Ty Montgomery to maybe kind of fulfill the pass catching duties that James White left behind. But that dude just suffered a ankle injury, so Ramondre is locked and loaded for a huge role this year. I really like that pick.
Yeah, Ramondre Raptor, be on the lookout for him. I was hoping to get him on my roster last year.
So is it Ramondre Raptor, or what was the original one?
Ramondrosaurus.
Ramondrosaurus.
I'm going Ramondre
pick one.
Raptor.
Ramondre Raptor. Lock it in, baby.
And my whiteout, it's got to be all bias included, but this is all facts. C.D. Lamb in this motherfucker. They gave this dude number 88 for a reason. That is a legendary number in the Cowboys' history. This dude, Amari Cooper, is gone. Dak Prescott is hungry. This is a team that is constantly going to be battled from behind. This is fantasy points heaven in the Dallas Cowboys. I, in fact, was targeting Dak in my drafts for this purpose. Dak, I think, is going to be a league winner this year. And CeeDee Lamb's going to be a huge part of that.
So I have a question for you. What in your definition is breakout? Because, I mean...
This dude's going to bust both these dudes. I mean, maybe not the Ramondre Raptor.
Well, no, for CD, the reason for my question is, I mean, dude was a top 20 receiver last year. He had over 1,100 yards.
He's gonna bust into that elite category.
Like top 5 category?
So do you think he's going to be a top 5 receiver?
So you would be comfortable with CD as your number 1 wide receiver on your fantasy roster? Would you be comfortable with that?
I'm not going to draft him that way because the price is too high, just seeing how players are getting drafted right now. But absolutely, CeeDee Lamb is going to turn into an
You wouldn't
absolute
draft your
all-star.
breakout player at his current ADP?
Not when I could get him in the 2nd or 3rd round, which is where
I think he's
going
normally
right
going in the middle second round
he's
is where he's
going
going in a
second
redraft.
round.
That's not the point. My point is that CeeDee Lamb is
Yeah,
going to
no,
bust
I
into
get it.
that Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson level of receiver this year.
But if you snag like a Joe Mixon late in the first round and then have a snake draft and pick CeeDee Lamb 5, 6, 7 picks later, whatever it is, that you'd be comfortable with CeeDee Lamb as your wide receiver 1. That's all I was asking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right on. Hey, you're just all over the OU players here. Did you even think about any other players? Did any other players come across your mind?
OU players, just so I can clear up that bias. I didn't even realize those were 2 Sooners.
That's good picks. That's good picks. I mean, I think CD's prime. Well, I'll move on to my breakout players here. I've got one running back, one wide receiver. My running back breakout player is Chase Edmonds. So Dolphins just released Sony Michel here today, and it's Chase Edmonds' season. He's got top 20 potential for his fantasy football finish, I believe, with Mike McDaniel in town.
You just drafted him yesterday, and then dude goes and gets released here today. That's got to
I know
be Christmas.
We talked about the Miami Dolphins backfield earlier this offseason and how you just wanted to stay away from it because they have Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, and they still have Myles Gaskin there and Salvin Ahmed. So just all those bodies there, like you're just like, I don't want any part of it. I have no idea who's going to be the top guy there, but you got to follow the money. They're paying Chase Edmonds like more than anybody else on their roster. So they released Sony Michel, and he's locked and loaded for a really good season. He's going to be the starter for the first time in his career, and he's a really good pass catching back as well, catching 43 receptions last year for 311 yards. And in 2021, he was a running back 17 from weeks 1 to 8 before his injury with Arizona. And 50% of those games, he had 14-plus fantasy points with 4 to 7 catches in those games. So a PPR format, Chase Edmonds is going to be really solid for your roster. And I'd be a little nervous if he was your running back 2, which I do have him as my running back 2 in a redraft league. So I'm a little nervous about it, but I think he's going to be really good this season. I think he's going to be a breakout player, and really excited to see what Chase Edmonds does with the new head coach and all those playmakers added to that Miami Dolphins offense.
I agree.
Yeah, I would say that's not a name that's going to jump off the screen for a lot of dudes, but it's someone you need to familiarize yourself with.
He needs to be flying up draft boards just like Dameon Pierce is.
Right.
Like, Dameon Pierce is going higher than he was earlier this offseason, and now Chase Edmonds is, but nobody seems like they're talking about it. Nobody wants to reach on Chase Edmonds, but people are willing to reach on Dameon Pierce. So you need to view Chase Edmonds as that as well, and if you still have drafts upcoming, get a little bit of Chase Edmonds on your team. I think it'll be beneficial for you, especially in PPR formats. And my wide receiver breakout player who isn't too much of a surprise because he's had one of the best off seasons anybody else has had. He's been showing out in practice, all mini camp, all training camp, and
Tyquan Thornton.
This is actually, he's right there in San Francisco with my boy Trey Lance.
Uh-oh.
It's Brandon Ayuk.
Uh-oh.
I think Brandon Ayuk, with this stellar offseason he's had, he's coming into year 3, not starting out in the doghouse this year. He's going to be ready to rock and roll. He was a wide receiver 16 over the second half of last season, and he's got to be the most improved player there in San Francisco. And he's been training with Trey Lance all offseason, and he still had a decent year in 2021. He obviously started off really rough, but ended the season strong at wide receiver 16 for the second half. But he ended the season with 56 receptions, 826 yards, and 5 touchdowns with 14.8 yards per catch. And with Trey Lance at quarterback, the dude who could throw it out of the fucking stadium, there's going to be big plays left and right for Brandon Ayuk and Trey Lance. And I'm so excited to see Ayuk maybe even be better than Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, he could be a
True.
big beneficiary of the Deebo decoy that could be going on all year here in San Fran, where, I mean, everyone's going to be locked in on Deebo in that offense. They're going to be, we got to stop Deebo.
Oh, yeah, Deebo's the first name that comes up for defensive coordinators for that offense, for sure.
Which is only going to free up a dude like Ayuk there. So that's a really good pick. Yeah. I had Ayuk not last year, but the year before, and he balled for me.
I think I've talked about this before, but I liked Ayuk more last season, heading into like startup drafts. I'm like, I drafted Ayuk. I've got Ayuk in both of my dynasty leagues, and he put up 0 points week 1. But I liked Ayuk more than Deebo Samuel at this point last season, unfortunately.
You were huge on Ayuk last year.
Unfortunately. But I think now is his time. He's been patient. He's just gone with the flow. He's gotten better, and I think Brandon Ayuk's primed for a breakout season.
I agree.
Knows his way around the league at this point.
Exactly. He knows what he's supposed to do, what he's not supposed to do.
Other than
out of the
throw
doghouse.
punches.
Dude, he's been out there squaring up Fred
Yeah,
Warner in
fucking
fucking
scrapping.
training camp. If you're a motherfucking dog out there, if you're trying to fight Fred Warner in practice, dude. And I think that whole defense has really been pushing him because they know what he's capable of. He's a really talented receiver. And they just kind of one of those guys that I guess needed to be pushed a little harder, and I'm excited to see what he does in 2022.
All right, and that'll conclude this episode of the DNZ Fantasy Football Podcast. Like we said, we are less than 10 days away from the start of the season. We're ready to get going.
Go snag those breakout players before the season starts.
Go
You're not going to be
snag
able
those
to.
guys.
Go snag them.
Go snag them, trade for them, draft them high, do whatever you can. Go get them. But thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, be sure and drop those down in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you here next time on the DNZ Fantasy Football Podcast.